Hello. Hello. I know these glasses are huge, but I just forgot to beat her face today, so I decided to wear these big ass glasses. Anywho, welcome to another episode of Pure Sessions with your girl. Okay, sorry about that. Just had a call. That's the one thing I hate about doing lives. People just ruin your calls and your videos. But anyway, welcome. This is an episode of Pure Sessions. This is episode 44, and I decided to glare so bad. I decided to again try to be in a different setting because this episode is titled Stop Stalling, and for the longest I would push things back. I would procrastinate. I would not want to do it because I'd be like, what's the point of doing it, because I know I'm not going to finish it. When I was growing up, or when I was starting to do music, or when I was starting with the podcast, and et cetera, et cetera. But now I'm trying to push myself that extra step to get past the comfort zone, because I mentioned before, either on a video or on this show, that nobody likes to be uncomfortable. You want to stay in your comfort zone, and it's okay to be in your comfort zone, because there's nothing wrong with staying in that bubble. But it really depends on how far you want to succeed, and how far you want to grow. Because if you're just kind of in this little square, in this little box, and that's kind of all you want to give, and that's cool. But don't complain at the same time. Not complain's the wrong word. Don't be upset on the flip side if you're not seeing anything that's above, right in front of you. Wait, no, not above, right in front of you. That's right in front of you. There we go. And for me, I like quick results. I like fast results, whether it be working out, whether it be with school, whether it be with likes or retweets and things like that. And when I don't see that, I kind of get frustrated. We're human, everybody does. But you have to just try and focus on what's important and what you want to build versus just the little things, because there always will be little things, whether it be people kind of in your ear telling you good things, bad things, people not being there like you thought they would be, because you were there for them like you thought that you would be. But sometimes it's just better to, like I mentioned before, kind of just step away and walk away from situations, from people and just areas, because once you see things clearer, and once you're away from all that extra stuff, you do see things clearly. And for me, when I mentioned before, that's why I got off of social media back in the beginning of the year, this year. Because it was just too much. It was just too much drama. It was just too much worrying about why this post isn't getting liked, or why this picture isn't getting retweeted, or, et cetera, et cetera. And then I was so busy not focusing on what I was trying to build, but I was so busy on focusing on other people and their success, which is not a bad thing. But once you start comparing yourself to them, and I felt like that was all that I was doing. You know what I mean? I felt like I was just always comparing myself to this artist, or this musician, or this podcaster, or this tweet, or this post, or this page, or et cetera, et cetera. And I guess I didn't have, the tools to, I guess, succeed in a way that I wanted to. I kind of just wanted the fast results. You know what I mean? So it took me a while to kind of see things clearly. So I kind of had to force myself to step out of my comfort zone and be okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to build? What do I want to strive to? And et cetera, So for me, for this episode, Stop Stalling, it kind of really goes a handful of things. For me, I would be focused on not the small things, but I kind of would be, if that makes sense. I would be more so focused on okay, well, this isn't happening at this point, and this isn't happening at that point, and what do I need to do to just focus on that? And I would be so busy, focusing on the small things, that I wouldn't be able to see the big picture. Whereas, things would, take time, and I never understood that. What is time? I wanted it to happen now, because I would see other people, and social media is the devil like that. People just post, people just put out things that they want you to see. They don't really show you the trials and tribulations that come behind it. So all you're really seeing is kind of the finished product. You're not really seeing the steps it took to get there, or the trials took to get there, the struggle it took to get there, or the heartache it took to get there. And who wants to post all that? I mean, you can, but who wants to talk about all that other stuff? You just really want to show the finished product. So for me, I kind of had to stop relying on my life on social media, and I kind of just had to focus on, okay, what do I want to do to get here, so I can stop wondering when will it be my time to shine? And I just had to just be like, okay, what do I want to focus on? What do I want to do? What do I want to build? And for me, I'm a very big procrastinator in school, so all the way back to college and high school, when I would be late on projects, or I would do assignments at like the very last minute because I would be like, what's the point? I still have time. Like, I don't need to do it for these past 4 weeks. I'm gonna do it the night before and see what happens. And after a while, obviously that didn't work because I couldn't really balance the things. So I would always take it as a challenge to see, you know, let me push myself to doing a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, and see, you know, how far it goes. And granted, I wasn't like a scholar in school, but I would get, you know, decent grades and things like that. But when you hear, for me, when I hear the phrase or the word or the sentence, you know, you need to stop stalling, go do this. You need to stop procrastinating, go do that. I just feel like it's more so like a little voice in your head, or a person, or God, or, you know, like a feeling that you need to just push yourself a little further. Because the minute you start just being okay with, you know, where you are, which there's nothing wrong with that, you just, it doesn't really do you any good. Like, if you want to go further than where you are right now, then what are you willing to do? You know, like, what are you willing to do to get there? Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes it does take work and doesn't take overnight. I wish it did. Like, I really wish, you know, me learning how to read music took 5 minutes versus the 4 or 5 months. Or me learning how to DJ and do music and produce music and write music and create music took 30 seconds versus a whole year and things like that. Oh, thank you. Blessings to you as well. But it didn't. It was fun, and I pushed myself to be better than I thought I could be, because everybody's always going to be better than you. There's always somebody who's going to be better at something else, either what you're good at or something else that you want to be good at. And it just always takes practice. I mean, nobody likes to do things over and over and over and over again. I mean, practice does make perfect, as they say, but it would be easier if some things kind of came naturally. Like, for me, when I was growing up, I noticed that fashion and designing and styling came fast for me. But like, when it came to like math or like science or like playing an instrument without me playing by ear like I have in my whole life, it took a little bit of work. And like I said earlier, I wasn't really a scholar in school. I kind of was just like, I'm here, so there we go. But again, it took practice. Like, when I went to school, I didn't get into the school I originally wanted to get into because my grades were kind of average. So I had to work my booty off, and I got to getting all straight A's to get into the school that I wanted. But then I didn't really go to class, and I kind of went to parties, and then it didn't really work out. So I had to go back to the school originally I was at and kind of build up my grades again to get back into a four-year college, because my grades kind of went like up, down, which I did end up doing it. Went from, you know, a 2.0 to being on Dean's List one semester, and then the final semester being on President's List. So it's not impossible. Like, I never really was, oh my God, thank you so much. That's so sweet. Thank you. I really can't see with these glasses, but I see a lot of nice words, so thank you. Blessings to all y'all. Back to you as well. What is it? Like, it's not impossible to push yourself to the limit. It really isn't. And sometimes people, oh my God, you're so sweet. Thank you. So are you. And sometimes people don't want to do the work. They want to just get to the finished product, like I was saying. Like, everybody wants to just get to the finished product, but you have to do the work in between A through Z to get to, you know, a masterpiece. You know, not unfortunately, but it's just, you know, what it is right now. And for me, I'm trying to push myself to stop stalling when it comes to going back to DJing, or stop stalling when it comes back to playing my saxophone more often than just doing it for the show. Like, I need to be doing like how I was in the beginning, you know, 5-6 hours a day. Like, back when I was playing the trumpet, I would be playing that 4 or 5 hours a day. But I gave up on it because it was so freaking hard. I did not know what I was doing. I didn't want to watch any tutorials. I was just like, I'm going to learn how to play this, and that's going to be that. And I gave up on it, like I do with things that kind of get hard or kind of require like a little work. And I'm just like, I need to not be doing that, because I did that with dance, I did that with ballet, I did that with the guitar, I did that with fashion, I did that with the drums, I did that with the piano, and now I did it with the trumpet. So I am refusing to give up on the saxophone, because yes, it is very difficult, but I'm going to push myself to be the best that I can be, because I know, you know, I know that I can be great. You know, I know that I can do well. Thank you. And I look at my saxophone every day, and I look at my trumpet every day, and I look at my controllers every day, because I know that if I don't do these things every day, whether it be a little bit every day, it's going to be hard for me to stay stagnant. You know what I mean? So I'm going to do part 2 later, because I just wanted to say that for a quick second. So I appreciate the few people who joined. Really means a lot. So I'm going to do part 2 of this episode a little later. But thank you guys for tuning in. It means a lot. Stay tuned for part 2 later. Okay. Hello. And welcome back to Pure Sessions with the girl Lana. So earlier I did part 1 of this episode. I had to cut it short because I was like on my way to go doing something, and I just got back home from what I was doing. So I was like, let me just finish out this episode. So earlier it was episode 44, and earlier the title was Stop Stalling. So if I remember correctly where I left off, I was talking about how I would procrastinate when it came to doing things that required like work that wasn't like, you know, that came naturally to me. So I think I mentioned like playing the drums, playing the piano, the guitar, and I said I wanted to have that not happen with the sax. So that's why every day I keep it out so I can look at it, because every other instrument that I have is kind of like just in this own corner, in the box in its own corner. And so for me, I keep the sax out so I could see it, because I'm more of like a visual person. Like I need to see whatever I'm doing versus somebody like telling me it or me just hearing it. I need to also see it. So I try to keep the sax out where it's always visible and I can always see it 24/7. And for me, I always, not that I was like a quitter or somebody who didn't work hard, but I just would get very frustrated, you know, really quickly, when I wouldn't get something that should have been so easy for me to get. Like everybody else is doing it, you know, why can't I do it? Like if this is so easy for them, you know, why can't it be easy for me? And this goes back to what I was saying earlier, when we're so busy comparing ourselves, you know, to other people, and you know, what they're good at, that we don't really see what we can be good at because we're so busy at wondering why we're not at the finish line. Like I mentioned earlier, people post things on social media, or social media kind of is the way that they're just showing you, you know, the finished product. They're not really showing you the in-between. Like there are some things people show you along the way, but we're so stuck, it's not stuck up, but stuck up, there we go, or hung up on, oh, this looks great, or I can buy this house, or I can buy this car, or I can be doing this and doing this, but nobody's really showing you, ooh, that's not good. Nobody's really showing you, you know, what they went through to get here, how long it took, or the things they had to sacrifice to get to these things. Because everything that's worth fighting for will take some sacrifice, does take time, and at the same time, we stall, or at least for me, I'm a staller when it comes to things that I know is going to require a lot of work, because I don't want to fail. That's basically really what it comes out to. I mean, there are other words you can use, but for me, I'm not a fan, which nobody is really, of failing. And for me, since I know how I am, and I know my tendencies, and I know that once it gets hard and once it becomes too much work or it's too tricky, I'll instantly be like, well, you know, I'll come back to this tomorrow. And no, you know, I'll come back to this the next day. Or maybe I'll just give it a break and, you know, come back to it in the fall. And then before you know it, it's 2-3 years later, and then it's still, you know, still in the box, and you're wondering like, well, what the heck happened? So for me, what I would say is, we have to stop stalling. You know, we have to stop pushing things, you know, to the very last minute, and then kind of giving it kind of like a half-ass thing, or just like a little bit of effort, because that's all we want to give. But more so, I feel like if we do a little bit here, do a little bit there, do some stuff a couple days throughout the week, or even do things for like 2 hours a day. You know, I try to read, not a book, but I try to look up a different quote from a different author, from a different artist, from a different, you know, entrepreneur, and kind of live through that quote. Like whatever the quote says, I kind of try to say, what does that mean to me? Or how can I use this in my daily life? Or how can I, you know, apply this to the things that I'm going through? Because there's always a quote that you kind of relate to, whether you notice it or not, or realize it or not. But there's always a quote that either A, you need to hear and see right then, or B, it's something you've been thinking about, but if once you see it on paper, it kind of becomes real. Like I said, if you're visual like me, like I said, some people need to just hear things and then they kind of can like grasp it. But for me, I kind of need to hear it and see it and feel it. I'm one of those. So that's what I try to do. And even though I don't practice the sax as much as I would like to practice the sax, I still try to practice at least learning the notes. Like I may not do the 4, 5, 6 hours I was doing in the beginning when I first got the instrument, but at least try to play and practice on the scale. Or at least try to look up other tutorials on how to, you know, hold your mouth the right way, or which notes go with this, or the highs and the lows. I may not be doing, you know, as much as I would like to be doing, because I'm just not doing it, which I'm going to start doing it and not just talk about it. But at least I'm doing something that kind of gets me, you know, like a step further along than just saying, oh, I want to play the sax. But what am I actually doing about it? Well, I'm actually learning the notes, watching videos, tutorials, and things like that. Because I'm still, you know, in the beginner stage, kind of like beginner 1.0, not like intermediate, but in the beginner stage. So for me, if I can at least say I did okay, maybe I didn't actually physically play the instrument, but I at least learned these new tricks, or at least watch these tutorials and these videos and things like that. And like I said, for me to see it and hear it, for those, if you're like me, who can't read music, it's just helpful when you have other people who can kind of help you through it, rather than like actually there. But if you can see it, you know, it sounds lame. If you can see it, you can achieve it. But if you can see it, then you do know it's possible. You can get to that next level of you being the one teaching how to play a saxophone or a guitar, or you being the one how to play this song without having to read the notes, because I'm kind of still at that level. So for me, whether it be with the music, whether it be with DJing, whether it be with the podcast, even with the podcast, I would be one of those in the beginning when I first started doing the podcast. I was like, oh, I don't really want to do this because I don't really see myself being that person who's kind of like giving advice and things like that. And otherwise, I feel like if I don't at least do a little bit of the podcast here or a little bit of the podcast there, I'm like, okay, well, I can't keep complaining that I want to have a podcast, and I can't keep complaining that, you know, I want to have like a platform people can kind of like relate to. Because that's kind of really why I started doing pure sessions with the podcast virtually or visually versus just doing the audio. Because like I mentioned before in the beginning, I would just be reading from my book. But now, since January, I want to say January, I would be trying to, you know, give a little 2 cents here, 2 cents there on things that I've gone through, whether it be like relationships, whether it be like with school, or whether it be like something that I've gone through that I can give you what I did to go through it, or what I did at the end of it, or, you know, something along the way that kind of helped me out, whether it be with public speaking. That's a good thing, because I'm terrible at public speaking. In doing these shows live, it has helped a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit has helped with my public speaking, with me being a little more confident in what I have to say. It may not be like on a scale of 1 to 10, it may not be like at the tippy top, but it's slowly getting me to kind of like come out of my shell a little bit. But I feel like these visuals, whether it's me talking or whether it has a guest on, or even doing the saxophone, I would have never done any of that live up until now. Like, I would just be playing in my room and not, you know, have anybody hear me, because I'm like, I'm not there yet. And that was the big thing that I would do when I would be doing my music constantly. I was like, I'm not ready to do lives yet, because I'll be afraid if I mess up, people will be judging me. But I had to get to the point where I realized that people, the critics, the views, whatever you want to call it, are your best yay and naysayers, if you will, because you're kind of playing for the public in a way. So why not show them what you have? You may not be Tiesto, but you at least could be like on a level to get there. And that's why I tried. I've kind of been slacking, you know, but that's why I tried to practice a little bit every day. I may not be on the controller, but I am creating music and doing things in that area. But for me, I remember in the very beginning, I would be like, I don't want to be doing these live, because I'm like, I'm not ready yet. I don't want anybody to hear me. I don't want anybody to see me, because the way I play, since I'm kind of still new to it and I'm kind of shy, like I said, I play with my head completely down. So I'm not one of those like engaging DJs where they're like talking to the crowd or talking to the phone or whatever you want to call it. I'm kind of like one of those who's like so afraid to not mess up while playing the set, and one of those who wants to focus on every little niche I'm doing and not have time to be like engaging and things like that. So it took me a while to get past that, and then I guess the energy, the vibe, even though it's, you're not physically next to me, you can still kind of feel and see somebody's vibe with whatever they're doing, music, art, retail, engineering, whatever you want to call it. If you're looked as, you know, reserved and shy and head down and not really like into it, then that energy comes off. But even if you mess up, so I would still try to engage, like look up a little bit. I wouldn't say anything. Excuse me. I wouldn't say anything, but I would try to look up and kind of be like, oh yeah, I'm here, I see you, blah, blah, blah. But let me go back to the music. So the same thing with the podcast. I try to work on, you know, looking at the camera and saying things that are relevant and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, the reason why I titled this episode Stop Stalling is there's something for everybody. There's always something everybody wants to do, but they're not afraid to do it, but they kind of want to just push it off to the very, very last minute. Like I said, whether it be with music, whether it be with going back to school, whether it be with finding that job, whether it be with talking to that person you've wanted to talk to for like 6-7 months, whether it be moving your family across the country or whatever, or something like that, or even taking a road trip or going hiking for the first time, you know, whatever. There's 1,000 things under the sun, but I just want to give my 2 cents on what waiting and what procrastinating and what just waiting for the right moment, or, you know, it's not my season, or, you know, maybe next year we'll only get you, you know, so far. And, you know, with COVID and being home and having to do kind of everything kind of like yourself, in a way, kind of put things into perspective, as if I'm like, I don't want to still be where I am at the beginning of COVID. We're out of COVID. So that's why I would try to do things like the podcast and the music and the different instruments and teach myself how to play. Try to do things that I've been saying I've been wanting to do for forever, but not actually doing it. So for me, there are other things, like bigger areas as well, that I'm installing on, procrastinating on, but at least with this, it's something enjoyable, you know, with the music and the podcast and things like that. But I tried to do something, like I always say, do something different today that you didn't do the day before, because it does help. You will get to where you need to be, whether you're doing this over here, doing that over there, just focusing on this for right now, because that's why I also stopped with the music and just focused fully on the podcast for the past 6 months, because I'm like, this is what I love to do, but I also want to build this brand and build this network up, because I think I have a little bit to say, and it may not be, you know, a lot to say. You know, I don't have a lot of experience in things, but I just try to speak on things that I've gone through, the tips that has helped me, and just trying to help the next person who's dealing with the same thing, because we all are dealing with things, you know, whether we say it or not. But it kind of helps, at least in my experience, from me watching other podcasters, other videos, if you're hearing, you know, like the testimony, if you will, people explaining what they went through and how they dealt with it, not like just sharing all the information, you know, but just giving tips that help the next person, because somebody could be going through the same thing, you know, that you're going through, and they may be, you know, shy or afraid or scared to, or embarrassed or ashamed to, you know, bring it up to somebody who's in their corner or their community. But sometimes hearing it from somebody else's lips kind of resonates with you, and feeling that, hey, this is bad, but it's not like so bad that I can't get through it, because they got through it. And again, that being said, everybody's situation is not the same thing, but if you have testimony, if you will, to say, and if you have like some if you came out on the other side better than when you went in, I feel like that's something that you can contribute to somebody's day, versus just, you know, not saying anything and then them feeling like there's no way out, because that's the worst feeling to feel, when you feel like there's like no way out. There's nothing that you can do, or nothing nobody can say that, you know, can make you feel better. But if you have like the Bible, or if you have like that friend, or if you have like that park that you can go to that kind of just clears your mind and kind of just puts things in perspective, you know, I feel like that can kind of help. May not be like right away helpful, but I feel like it can kind of help down the line when you have a person or a thing or a place to kind of calm you and kind of make things seem okay for the time being. It may not be permanent, but it might be like a temporary feeling. if that makes sense. So yeah, so that's my part 1, part 2 of episode 44, Stop Stalling. I mean, I just, don't take my word for it, but I feel like if you do something a little bit more each day, just a little bit more each day, a little more each day, I feel like at the end of the week or the end of the month, the progress will show and what you're trying to accomplish will show. It may not seem like huge, but I feel like if you just give a little more effort than you normally have to something that you care about, or something that you want to happen that's bigger than yourself, or you want to move on to the next step, the next level, or like leaving your legacy, like I mentioned before, I feel if you just do a little bit more than what you've been doing, slowly but surely, things will get there. Like for me, with networking and branding the website, I've started doing that, and granted, things have become slow, but I am starting to see, more followers, more content, more retweets, more likes, so things are helping if you do it the right way, and if you stay consistent. That's really what's about, consistency and being patient, which are 2 things I'm not really good at, but during this time of COVID especially has helped me kind of rearrange some things and kind of just focus on what's important and what I want to build, whether it be with the music, podcast, music, the saxophone, or music with the controller, or just finding a career. This is something that I've never done before, but I do have been enjoying it, and I had to step out of myself and out of my head of trying to, compare myself to other people who've been doing this for longer than I have, and just realize that my journey is my journey and their journey is their journey. But eventually we all get to where we need to be. We all don't go through the same routes. We all can't do the same things that the next person did that we're trying to accomplish. But if we, do what's best for us, focus on us, build us up, focus on what's important for us, and as well as being the best that we can be. And I feel like at the end of the day, it's all that matters is if you can go to bed at the end of the day, or whatever time you go to bed, if you're like me, you never go to bed, if you can close a chapter of the day and say you accomplished these 10 new things and feel satisfied with it, whether it be from cleaning your room to waxing your car, but there's 1,000 things in between that. I feel like if you can close that chapter in the day and say, I feel good about all these things, and that's really all that matters. And the next day, you can another 10 things, and the next day, 10 things, and so on and so forth, where you get to the point where you don't need to worry about what other people are doing. You're just so focused on what you're doing and building, your brand up, that your happiness kind of shines and glows through versus focusing on what they're doing. That makes sense. Yeah. But, what was I going to say? I forgot the last thing I was going to say. There's one more thing I had to say. Dang it. Oh, yeah, I didn't post this week an episode of the Jam Sax Sessions. I'm kind of not doing that as frequently. I'm kind of just going to be maybe doing like a little bit snippet, because before I was doing like a whole episode, but I think I'm just going to focus on doing like a little snippet. So stay tuned for that. But yes, that is about it. Appreciate you guys listening to part 1 and you guys listening to part 2. But yeah, Pure Sessions is every week. This is Lana. It's episode 44, titled Stop Stalling. And you can find me on Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, what else? Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud, YouTube, at Unimpure. But yep, that's about it. I hope you guys have a great evening. And I'll say it again. Do something today that you didn't do the day before, and I hope you guys have a great, great week. It's Monday, right? Yeah. Enjoy your week. Way.